What is going on, Badgers? The Badgers are 2-0. I'm going to tell you why we need to be maybe a little more optimistic and some big picture thoughts plus your community questions. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in, for being part of this community. You gals are incredible, so I appreciate it so much. This is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. So we do this after every week. We do a community show, right, where we look at comments on Twitter, on YouTube channel, whatever it is, off the shows we've done, and just kind of get the pulse of the community. But I want to start here. I feel like, and I'm part of this, like I'm certainly, and if you've listened to the show for a while, you know this, I'm certainly not perfect. Like I'm part of this. I feel like we got a little too pessimistic after that game. And that's kind of what the reaction shows are, right? That's why it's nice. You do a reaction show. We call it the therapy show. And it's just, listen, it's sports fans in a bar, right? Like yelling and screaming, cheering and crying together. It's more emotional. But then you sit on it for a day. And my big picture, I mean, I titled the show Big Picture Takeaways, Thoughts, is the Badgers are 2-0. And if you look around the landscape of college football, and I want to be clear, that doesn't mean everything is great. And I understand the level of competition. Nobody's talked about that maybe more than I have, the first two games versus what's coming up on the schedule. But I think the big picture, I was kicking this around the other day, you look at a Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. You look at Alabama struggling into the fourth quarter against USF. They turned it on. You look at Oregon struggling for a couple weeks now. You look at Michigan getting trucked by Texas. I mean, Texas is really good, but you also look at a lot of schools that have struggled with, I would say, iffy competition. I have lost to iffy competition. You look at Florida State. I guess my big picture is, in college football has always been a little wonky in the first 2 weeks. Like that's been a hallmark of college football. You never know fully what you're going to expect because, as Kedrick Stumbris, who's on the show, said, there's no preseason in college football. So the first couple weeks are always kind of wonky, but then you add in this incredible nebulous era of the transfer portal where people are transferring in and out, and you have far less roster continuity. You have far more new pieces and new places trying to find their ways. I think the first 2 weeks are just going to lend themselves to more volatility. And in that sense, the Badgers have weathered it. They've won 2 games, both by 14 points. They could have had another touchdown yesterday, and then they went by 21. They decided just to kind of kneel on it, which is fine. I think big picture is, our expectations are too high. Like this is not the prime Wisconsin Optimus Prime transformer that just can knock the crap out of every mediocre team on the roster. It's not there yet. And we need to stop kind of expecting that and then getting upset when it doesn't happen, right? I talked about this on the call-in show, and I pointed out there, and I probably should have done it even more. People are 38-6, 41-2, like these score predictions. And I was like, guys, and I think I said like 31-17. We need to get to the point where, all right, we're building back up to hopefully that version of Wisconsin where you expect to go and beat the really bad teams, the mediocre teams, the FCS teams, 49-7, but we're not there yet. And we need to realize that, I think, as a fan base, like, hey, it's building. We're getting there. It's a process. We're not there in this point on the timeline right now. We are not quite there. So let's stop expecting it and then getting angry when it doesn't happen. When was the last time we scored 40 points? Why do we keep predicting it? Right? I think we're getting so frustrated because we're looking at a picture of Wisconsin that isn't truly there yet, instead of just realizing, okay, we're 2-0. Let's enjoy these moments and grow with it. And I do think the team got better. I do think there's things from week 1 to week 2 that are better. And I'm going to talk to you about some of them. I do think this team, I generally, again, still believe this team is in the right direction. It's headed in the right direction. And I understand if people want to say it's copium, hopium, whatever it is. Cool. Like we always say on the show, we'll never tell anybody how to fan. Fan however you want to fan. And we're going to put some of those comments up here. Again, this is a community show, but my big picture takeaway is we're not quite where we want to be yet. Let's stop expecting it and start kind of appreciating the micro growth that we're starting to see in some areas. I know that's my rant. This is the community show. This is not about me. This is about y'all. I'm sure there's going to be people that disagree. Brendan O says that game was horrible. I was there. So yeah, listen, I know like my thoughts aren't anyone else's thoughts, and that's cool. That's what makes this a community. I want to get into some of the tweets again. This is the community show, so we put up tweets, comments, your thoughts, the live shots, the live thoughts. It's all there. So a couple Twitter comments is from Mark Meddings. This is on the Chaney hit. Chaney made a picture perfect tackle, didn't deliver the blow above the shoulders. It was a BS call. I applaud Fickle for calling it out. There's a bunch of different tweets on Chaney and thoughts. I want to really quickly put mine out there because I disagree with Mark that it was not a picture perfect tackle. Like Chaney led with his head. The reason that rule is in the game is to protect heads, necks. So no, that's not a picture perfect tackle. Chaney needs to clean that up, but we got to stop with the BS of throwing players out for things that clearly aren't malicious. Like that's not a malicious hit, right? If you remember back to the LSU Lambeau game, Dakota Dixon gets the pick at the end, and that ridiculous LSU offensive lineman comes and cheap shots him. That's a malicious play. You can see malicious plays a mile away, right? It's obvious. We have eyes. We're humans. We've seen enough football to understand the difference between a bad tackle but not malicious or just someone trying to hurt somebody. Don't throw people out for non-malicious plays. My goodness. Like athletes train for this stuff their entire lives, man. They put their heart, body, and soul into it. And forget for a second what you thought of Chaney's performance on the field or whatever else. I'm seeing some comments about, well, that means we get to see more Tackett. If Tackett plays better, just let him earn the reps, not because Chaney gets thrown out from some BS nonsense. Not BS nonsense. It was a targeting call, but he's going to miss half a game against Alabama. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm sorry. Maybe do something, and I know this is not new. People have talked about this for a while, but do something where if a player has two of those in a game, you sit them. Don't just throw them out, man, for making a split-second poor form tackle. So on that, I do agree with Fickle for calling that out. I think that's ridiculous. Absolutely hogwash. Evan Flood said, been a pretty underwhelming first two games for this Badgers defense. I was thinking about it. I'm like, but has it been? Like, so this is again where I think expectations need to chill. Wisconsin's given up 13.5 points per game. Like, if I told you before, and we all knew the defense line would have some issues. So if I told you before the season, first two games, Wisconsin's given up 13.5 per game, what did you expect from points per game standpoint? 7? Like, I don't know, man. It feels again where our expectations are a little out of line. Now, where I will agree with this is I do think the linebackers, I expect them to be a little more disruptive. I don't think it's been a great two first games, but maybe this is really kind of what we should have expected with a defense line that we all kind of acknowledged isn't where it needs to be. Now, do they need to get a little more stout against the run game? Yeah. I don't know how you're going to necessarily do that. Right? Like this is the D line that you have. Put more people in the box. That's something Curtis Holland talks about a lot when he comes on the show. I'm there for that. But then you leave yourself a little more susceptible on the edges and in the deep middle. Maybe that's what you need to do anyway because you trust your secondary more. But again, has it really been a really underwhelming first two games? I think I'm going to push back a little bit and said maybe this is just kind of what we should have expected. They're giving up 13.5 per game. And you look at some of that, there's been some sudden switches, off turnovers, muff punt, fake field goal. I'm not here to make a litany of excuses, but I don't know if it's been super underwhelming, at least based on what expectations probably should have been. Next tweet here we got, and again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I like doing these community shows so we can just get kind of everybody into it. We got some live comments here we'll get to as well. But again, also just big picture stuff. Donnie Slusher says Tyler Van Dyke's first 3 completions went for 104 yards. His remaining 14 just 110. Yeah, I think this is an interesting one from Donnie. And this is something I was talking about on the reaction show is I just don't fully know what our offensive identity is at times. It feels like we're aggressive in micro spurts, like a micro storm. And what are those things called? You get a quick down flood of rain and then it kind of goes away. It feels like we could be more consistently aggressive, but maybe that's what they're saving for some of the tougher games too. I do wish we would see a little more consistency throughout the course of a game. And that's a hallmark back to last year, right? I don't know if we put together a full 60 where at the end of the game, maybe LSU bowl game last year, maybe where you look back and you say, that felt like a 60-minute good offensive execution, 60 minutes of good offensive football. I guess it'd be like 30 because you're not playing the entire game. But my point is, I kind of agree with Donnie's kind of overall take here. It feels like it's a little hot and cold, and we're still in that mode offensively. All right, let's take a quick break, friends of the show. Come back, get your live comments, more of the community shows. Like, big picture, where are you guys at? Are you with me that maybe our expectations were just a little too high, or am I talking crazy? Again, all and every viewpoint is welcome on this show, as always. Take a quick break for our friends of the show over at 5 Hour Energy. That's my jam. Like, straight up, 5 Hour Energy helps me get the things done that I need to get done in the days that I have, because we don't get any more days than we get, right? Time is a finite resource, so you got to make the most of them. I wish I could give y'all more days. If I could, I would, but I can't. So instead, I'm going to help you optimize the ones you got. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Little bottles, right? Like, you've all seen them in the stores. There's no sugar. Like, you don't need all that gunking up your innards, man. That's not good for you. I'm no doctor, but I don't think that's healthy. So go to 5hourenergy.com. Use code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. You can use promo code up to September 30th on one order. Cannot be used with our promotions. It is also not good on subscription orders, but you can build your 6-pack, 12-pack. Get all the flavors you want over at 5hourenergy.com today. All right, let's get some of your live shows. Again, community show. How are y'all feeling? How are we doing today? And the Badgers are 2-0. Like, if you want the ultimate big picture, the Badgers are 2-0. And that's not nothing when you look around at college football. Michael Wagner says, look at Colorado. Gosh, that program's such a joke. Listen, I had money on Nebraska. I thought they were going to get mollywopped. I actually thought that score could have been a little worse. It felt like Nebraska took the foot off the gas a little bit in the second half. You have Shadur Sanders leaving the game with like 2.5 minutes left, and his boys are still playing. I'm sorry. Screw that. That program is a joke. Yeah, no, I want no part of that type of energy. Badger and Bournemouth says, I feel more confident after Saturday. We are not winning a national championship, but we will compete. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I feel like we just need a bit of a reset, guys. We are not the 2010 Badgers right now. It's okay to admit that. And once you admit that, and that's not an excuse. Like, I already know people are going to come back and say, oh, they're okay with just barely beating an FCS. No, I'm not. But I think I'm recognizing this is more of a journey than I thought it would be. And I'm not going to hold this team to a standard that they're just not going to play at right now and then get frustrated that they don't hit that standard. Maybe I'm just trying to be a little more realistic. And listen, I was part of that. I expected a bigger win week 1, but honestly, this was kind of what I expected week 2. And then I got upset about not playing as well. And it doesn't make sense in my brain. So I'm going to have a bit of a mental shift, I think. Adam Otto says it's going to be a rough season without serious improvement. Ohio State smoked Western Michigan 56-0, and we aren't close, unfortunately. I think that's what I'm saying, though. Like, I think I'm agreeing with you, Adam. Like, we aren't right now close to Ohio State. And we got to stop trying to use that as the barometer by which we judge our team right now in this moment. And Fickle has to get us closer to that point. That's part of his job too. But we're just not going to be there in year 2. Zach Bart says this feels like a chemistry issue. We need recruited talent who gels with the staff and team. Built-in portals and sustainable. It's meant to supplement. Feels like there's just a lack of trust. Yeah, I agree with you on the portal. You got to supplement there. You can't build teams through the portal. And I think for the most part, they've done an okay job of supplementing. I think you maybe have some questions at quarterback. I think you maybe needed to see more supplementation on the defensive line. Y'all know how many defensive linemen SMU brought in this portal cycle? 8. Now, granted, there's oil money down in Dallas. But yeah, like, I think you could have augmented a little bit more there. I don't know if it's a chemistry issue. I actually think Fickle and this staff does a pretty good job of building chemistry and building culture. And that's not just me saying that. That's me having talked to some players in the room. And I don't know if it's a chemistry issue. I think there's just a still trying to build the team issue, right? And it's tough. It's tough to change that culture. And I think they're still working on it. And I don't want to make excuses. Like, it's their program at this point. There's no, I'm not here for any type of like, Paul Chris didn't do this or that for them. At this point, it's their program, 100%. The successes and the failures. So I'm not here to make excuses for them, but I don't think it's me personally, and I could be wrong, Zach. I don't think it's a chemistry issue. Michael Wagner says we point too many fingers. Just enjoy the ride. Yeah, man. It's like it's one of those double-edged swords, right? Because we all know what the Wisconsin standard should be, and the Wisconsin standard at its best isn't surviving games against Western Michigan and South Dakota. But I also don't want to get so frustrated that we're not peak Wisconsin that I'm not enjoying the Wisconsin games that we win. It's hard to win football games. And again, this is the me sleeping on it tonight and having some reflection. Bo Dragon said Van Dyke threw 1 touchdown. That's progress. See, even Bo's optimistic today. Yeah, I would be upset if we missed that one touchdown pass, considering how open it was. Listen, Van Dyke's still got to get better. I'm going to do the grade shows probably tomorrow. I thought I thought Van Dyke was better in week 1. I thought he was better in week 1. I think that's progress. I know he's not the most agile guy, but I like how he's able to use his legs in the RPO action. I think he creates some stuff there. He really fits balls into the intermediate routes, the slants, and the little hitches really, really well. I mean, that's an elite NFL arm skill there. Got to get a little better in areas for sure. I thought he missed some throws in the second half, but I thought this was a better game from Van Dyke, and he didn't turn it over. Did not turn it over. Jim Mandel says Bama has problems of its own, penalties, turnovers, pass protection, and big problems for them. Bama didn't look great week 2. Now, at the end, they turned it on. And like when I say they turned it on, at one moment you look at that game and it's like, oh, 14-13, Bama, South Florida, let's go. Then you turn it on and it's like, oh, okay. At the end of it, Bama Bama'd them. Yeah. But that's not a perfect team. Listen, I'm not here to make the case that we're going to beat Bama, though. Bama's going to body us a little bit. I'll dive into that more this week. We have multiple shows with Bama guys coming up. It's going to be a big Bama week. TJ24 says need a better defense line rotation. Yep. Agreed. No doubt. I think they need to rotate more with the guys that they have in the locker room. Like I would like to see more Brandon Lane playing. I would like to see, I mean, I don't know. They had Dylan out there. Elijah Hill's got more reps. I would like to see a little bit more of those guys, but they also just need more defensive line guys in general. Okay, let's keep going here. Michael Wagner says they gave up 13 points, had one bad drive. Bo points out level of competition. Agreed. Like the level of competition hasn't been very good, and I'm not here to tell you the Badgers have played great. I'm here to try to make the case that maybe the Badgers are a little further away than people hoped, and expectations have to be adjusted a little bit. Okay, let me get some more of these tweets up here too. Again, community show as always. I really like doing these. It's just a way where we can get your thoughts in. This one's from Chicago Badger, who he's a good dude on Twitter, and he points to some of the same stuff I've been talking about. If the tweet will show up, but there it is. Big picture: Wisconsin's 2-0. College football landscape has seen Iowa lose to Iowa State, Texas make Michigan look like a high school team, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, Bama struggled with USF. Penn State almost lost to Bowling Green. He also mentions Tackett Kurdish is unleashed and moving onward. Craig Smith, and I think that's a fair point from Chicago Badger. This is also a fair one. Craig Smith said, just once, I want to see the Badgers dominate an inferior opponent and win by 40 plus. I'm old enough to remember when we used to do that. That third quarter was horrific. The rest of the game was fine. Yeah, the third quarter wasn't good enough. And that's one of the things I talked about with Longo's offense, but it stretches to Tressel too. I don't know if they put a full 60 together, which is a little concerning if you're into year 2, right? You want to see a really good, clean game. And he's right. Like, we got to get back to the point where we dominate inferior opponents. And for everything I've said about South Dakota being a really good FCS team, and they are, that's not platitudes. They're still an FCS team, right? That's still a team you should push around a little bit more and look better against. But again, I just don't think we're there right now, and continuing to beat our heads against the walls of fan base and say, why are we not there? I hate it. We just got to accept we're not there right now. And let's see how we can incrementally grow throughout the year and get better. I also don't think, and there's some comments in here, we're going to get to some of them. I don't think Bama is a lock to destroy us. I've already seen some thoughts. Bama 56-0. Bama's going to destroy us. I'm not so sure about that one. Seamus says, it's kind of astounding how much faster and stronger Cade Yakimelli looks from last year to now. He looks great. The Yak attack. Yeah, like, be excited about that one. That, to me, is another testament to the running back depth. We talked about it before the year. We said this might be one of the deepest, not best, deepest running back rooms Wisconsin's had in a long time. I think you lose a Tyree Walker, and Cade Yakimelli steps up and gives you 9 yards per carry, and you see the two freshmen, right? Both Dylan and Dupree looked apart. And by the way, Aker got a couple carries. Malusi ran hard. Not as efficient as you would like, but I think he continues to run hard. Yeah, like, it's you saw 5 running backs get reps, and that's with Tywee out. This is a really deep running back room, and I thought K looks great. The biggest thing with Yakimelli, Ches picks and chooses a little bit more, right? I think he's not tentative's not the word, but he tries to run with a very patient style. Tywee also uses vision and feet a little bit. K just hits the hole, and sometimes that hole's not going to be there. I mentioned, to me, without the top end speed, he reminds me a little bit of Grendo. That's what Grendo was. Grendo was not a guy who was going to use vision to set up blocks, but he was a guy who was going to be very decisive. If he saw a hole, if he saw a crease, he was going to hit it, and he was going to hit it at speed. That's what Yakimelli does, which makes him a bit of a change of pace to the other guys who they do pick and choose a little bit more. They do try to allow the play to develop. Because of that, listen, because of that, Cade is going to run into some things because he's not going to have that patience. He's going to run into some tackles. He's going to run into the backside of some blockers, but he's also going to hit some creases where the other guys may not. So I really like, first of all, I'm thrilled for him. Talking about a guy who came in under the previous regime, has stuck it out through a lot of competition, right? Hasn't wanted to transfer, had to switch positions like after his first year in the program, and has just stuck with it and been a grinder. I'm freaking thrilled for a guy like this. These are the people you cheer for, right? Stick around, compete your butt off, forget the portal, forget the NIL nonsense. I'm just going to earn my reps. And yeah, I wasn't talking about him. I'll take that one. Like I had almost written Cade off in the sense that I thought he would fall out of the rotation with the freshman getting reps. He's proven me wrong, and I love it. I'm here for that one. We're going to take one more quick break. A bunch more comments we want to get into. Yeah, this is just a community show. But again, big picture-wise, I feel I'm not as down, I think, as maybe the majority of Badger fans right now. So, all right, let's take one more quick break for our friends of the show over at Ibotta. Listen, I buy stuff. You buy stuff. We all buy stuff. We live in an economy where you exchange currency for goods. That's what Ibotta is here to help you with. You're already buying stuff. You might as well get some money back on the stuff that you do buy, whether it's kid supplies, going back to school, game day supplies. We're all going to Madison, going to Camp Randall, getting the things we need to do, whether it's coolers, tables, whatever it is. Over at Ibotta, you can join a community that has over 50 million users that earn cash back every time they shop. And the other apps give you kind of crap points. Ibotta gives you literal cash. Up to the average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. If you check on eBay, that's enough to get a Jonathan Taylor signed jersey, framed, put it in the background. I love it. Go over to Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to download the app, and Ibotta is giving our listeners $5 for just trying it. That's $5 free. That's $5 free. That's a Big Mac, right? No, Big Macs are more expensive than that now. But it's $5 to use on whatever you want just by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. All right, let's get back into the comments. Get some more tweets up here. As always, y'all, appreciate you guys tuning in. This thing would not be obviously what it is without you. Chicago Badger says, I'm just not seeing the outside linebackers getting playing time, doing a lot of irreplaceable things on the football field. I'm not convinced that the coaching staff is being as flexible and dynamic as they need to be. I think it's a good point. I would like to see. It's tough, right? Because I'm not in the locker room. Obviously, we're not breaking down the film with the coaches, and the young guys are going to have mistakes too, right? It is a bit of a double-edged sword. Right, the young guys are going to make mistakes that sometimes are going to go unnoticed by us. Maybe it's not setting an edge. Maybe it's getting a read wrong. Maybe it's running a wrong route. But I do think you have to work in. I would like to see a little Lafayette. Honestly, I would like to see a little more Tackett Curtis. I would like to see more Allegro. I would like to see a little more reps going to Tretch, just in terms of get him the ball. I would like to see a little more Dupree and Jones in moments. I just think those guys have some juice that maybe some of the upperclassmen don't. And you're not going to out-talent Bama either way, and you're not going to out-talent Penn State or Oregon either way, but maybe if you get a little more unpredictability and athleticism on the field, you might be able to hit a few plays. But keep in mind, like, they're also going to make freshman mistakes. But I would also, so here now I'm like ping-ponging it in my head. I'm hitting this idea back and forth. You're also seeing veterans make some mistakes. So either you're seeing guys like Chaney overrun some run fits, Jaheim Thomas overrun some run fits. You're seeing Ches Malusi fumble the ball occasionally. My point is, it's not like the veterans are perfect either. Yeah, I kind of agree with Chicago on this one. I would like to see some of those young guys get some more reps. A couple more comments here. I think we nailed most of the Twitter ones. Mad Cat Targaryen says, same as last week, win is nice, progress is slow. If anything, nothing is happening fast with this team. I think there is some of that. We all hoped it would be a little quicker. Downstream said, I think we go 4-7, maybe 5-7 if we are lucky. Nebraska is a definite loss. Nebraska is not a definite loss. Although I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Like, Raiola looks the part. I don't think Colorado's any good at all. I think they're trash, but he looks the part. They got a quarterback, and they're going to have a quarterback with 7 weeks of experience. By the time we play him, he's going to be even more settled in. That's going to be a battle, man. And Nebraska's probably going to be favored, but it's definitely not a definite loss. Like, let's see them play somebody. They played UTEP and a Colorado team who I think is a total fraud. Let's see them play somebody. They have a really easy schedule this year. They're definitely going to go bowling. Listen, credit to Matt Rule. That's not an easy game, but Not a definite loss. Absolutely not. Robert N says, how about the improvement on penalties? No Doug, can't muff a punt, obviously, but it's not endemic. Crap happens. The D stepped up and held NF, I think he means South Dakota to 3 points. Give the Badgers a break. Yeah, I think the post game shows are always going to be a little more reactionary and full of emotion. That's the point of them, right? They're therapy sessions. You get the stuff you're frustrated out. You get the stuff you're happy out. I do agree. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there's positives that I like. I like the growth from Yakimelli, improving on penalties for sure. Although, listen, if we're going to call it the penalties, there were some poorly timed penalties that went on the Badgers offensively from false start standpoints and 3rd and 1. So the penalties need to continue getting better. You can say muffing a punt isn't endemic, but that's 2 weeks in a row they fumbled on a return. Last week it was the kickoff return. This week it was the punt return. You can't do that once a week, man. I mean, let's be real on that one. But I do agree, and I mentioned this on the show. After that muffed punt, the defense stepped up and they pushed South Dakota back and didn't give anything up. So yeah, the defense rose up there 100%. MF says these are the worst Badgers I've really ever seen. There's definitely been worse teams, but there's so much hype around Fickle in the air raid. There's just no air raid, no running backs anymore. Well, I mean, I'll push back on the running backs. I think the running backs are fine. I think on the offensive side, they just got to find a quarterback. I don't know. I don't know if Van Dyke is fully that guy yet or not. I don't think these are the worst Badgers I've ever seen, though. They're 2-0. It's a tough schedule. Let's see it play out a little bit. Bucky63 says, how about our kickoff man? He was great. No ability to have long run backs, everything in the end zone. Yeah. Listen, that's a fair point. What do we talk about incessantly last year? Like again and again and again, right? It was kick the ball and bounce. No, they solved it. You get credit where credit is due. Now, maybe that's a low-hanging bar, and it kind of is. But you still got to clear the low-hanging bars. So they've solved that one. And you're right. You're not giving people the opportunity to return kicks. You're not kicking it out of bounds. That is an element of special teams that has certainly gotten better. Needed to get better, but it has got better. DJ says your watchers are way too negative. Badgers are 2-0. Check out Michigan, Notre Dame, Iowa, FSU. Yeah, it's kind of the theme I led up with the show. I think there's a thread, to a needle to thread there, or a thread to needle. I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's a sweet spot here where I think we're all struggling to get to, myself included. The sweet spot is, yeah, let's not be overly critical. Let's understand who we are. We are 2-0. Also, it hasn't been a great schedule. Last year was a little disappointing, and we would like to see more growth in certain areas. Like where you fall in that spectrum of that sweet spot is everyone's going to be different, right? Some people are going to be much more negative. Some people are going to be much more positive. We always say it on this show. All of those thoughts are welcome. Every single one of them, as long as you do it respectfully, be the most negative or the most optimistic. They're all welcome. And none of them are, I got to be honest, like, I don't know if you could say any of them are incredibly wrong right now, right? When I look at the most negative thoughts and comments about this team or the most positive, I don't know if I can make an argument that either of them are completely wrong. So I think we're still trying to learn what this team is. KJ Tillison says Alabama will kill us. And there you go. And there's definitely a scenario they beat us. I mean, kill us. Sorry. There's many scenarios they beat us. Like Multiverse of the Madness, Doctor Strange. He's gonna have to go through the timeline to find the one scenario, the one timeline where we beat Alabama out of the thousands and thousands, and he'll come back to us with that plan. I apologize if you're not a Marvel fan. Alabama could absolutely kill us. Somebody in our Discord, I think it was Eilers, put up a question. Do you think it's more likely Wisconsin stays within 7 of Bama or Bama beats us by 30? Let me know in the chat. Do you think it's more likely it's a close game, but we still lose? Or do you think it's more likely that Bama just crushes us? And I hate saying this, man, I kind of think it's more likely Bama rolls us. Just because that is such a physical team with a physical running quarterback that can really just dominate the trenches. We know that's an issue for us. But I'll say this, I said this on the postgame show, and I'm telling you, there's a part of me that really believes this. I think this team will play up to their level of competition and at times play down to their level of competition. Like that, hate that. I don't think that's a great trait, but I do think you're going to see a better version of the Badgers, not just from the player standpoint, but I think there's stuff this coaching staff has not fully put out there. I think there's things either in the 2 deep. I think there's going to be a few changes, maybe not starters, backups, but in rotations and playing time. I think there's going to be some stuff offensively. I do don't look at week 1 and week 2 and say, I know for a fact that's the Badgers I'm going to get in week 3. And because of that, vis-a-vis concordingly, we're going to get blown out. I don't think it's a 1-for-1. I think there's more in the trunk that the Badgers haven't unboxed yet. So, again, maybe that's just copium. We're going to dive into a bunch of Bama stuff this week. Let's see. This is from David W. I kind of disagree with this one, but let me know what y'all think. Wisconsin's finding out that the 3-3-5, that's what Michigan found out under the Rich Rod era. If you remember, Rich Rodriguez, hired by Michigan, brought the 3-3-5 from West Virginia. The 3-3-5 is not a Big Ten defense. Hopefully, Fickle will dump the DC. I disagree with that. And I know people keep telling me this, and maybe I'm wrong. I think the 3-3-5 works if you get the right person. I think any defense works if you get the right personnel. Period. I think it's as literally as simple as that. I think the 3-3-5 works if you have a Keanu Benton and a Matt Henningsen on the line. We don't. I think it's as simple as that. I think it works in the Big Ten, but you got to get the right dudes, and they don't have the right dudes yet. Like, you want to run a 4-3 or a 3-4? I don't think you got the dudes to run those effectively in the Big Ten either. Please, tell me I'm wrong on this, but Fickle's absolutely not an idiot. I don't think he's playing a defense. I think he knows what works in the Big Ten is my point. He understands the fabric of the conference. He played here, coached here. He's a smart coach. I think he knows it'll work, but they got to get the right dudes, man. They need a Jamel Howard that hits. They need a sawed-off tree trunk in the middle of that defensive line, and then it works. And then suddenly the 3-3-5 will work. And people are like, it's great defense. But it's about the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's most of the time, right? Obviously, it's not all one or the other. That's why the great coaches are the great coaches, but you got to get some dudes on that defensive line. You just got to. This is from Jay Till. Where did Ryan get the Wisconsin red, white, and blue hat? Yeah, buddy. Off Amazon. It was like $20. Yeah, I like it. I had a previous one that was more of a patch, but my dog chewed it up. Let's see. B-Vault says, I'm of the stance I'm getting nervous. Wisconsin made the wrong hire. Should have pursued Rule. It's early. I said at the time I thought Rule was a good hire for Nebraska. It's looking that way, but Rule also got the quarterback, and that's the biggest piece on the chessboard. You got to get the quarterback right. And they got to find a guy that they can get internally and develop. It's as simple as that. Rule also has a weak schedule this year, so he might look a little better at the end of the year just based on the level of competition. Let's see. Bird Dogger, does Nebraska have a better QB due to NIL? Oh, that was in response to someone else. My bad. Let's see. Other comments in here. We got a lot of comments, guys. Really do appreciate it. Mark F says, if you don't have the personnel, you have to change the scheme. Mark's a good friend of the show. I always like his comments. But change the scheme to what? Like, this is, again, where I'm saying, like, if I'm telling you the big issue is defensive line depth, in my opinion, there's not a scheme change to fix the fact that you don't have a good enough defensive line. Now, there's certainly things you can tweak, but I think ultimately you just need better defensive linemen. It's like saying, if your offensive line is really bad, well, just adjust the scheme. But ultimately, at some point, if your offensive line is just really bad, you just got to get that position better. Let's see. A couple more questions here. Brian Axness, or a couple more comments. Brian Axness, also a really good dude, said, if Mabry develops into what we hope, half the issues go away. 100%. Like 100%. And Mabry, this was never going to be the year for him. I've already had a couple DMs that are like, hey, is Mabry going to get on the field this year? This is not the year for him. But he is a guy with the physical tools that you're looking for at that spot. They got to hit on quarterback. And you do that, and so many issues go away. You have this revolving fifth-year kind of transfer thing, which those are just Band-Aids, panacea. I'm all over the map. But those are just like Band-Aids on wounds. You have to fix the underlying issue, right? And that's developing a quarterback internally. Let's see what else we got here. Tyler Overman says we should shift back to 3-4. It will help significantly against the run. That would get more linebackers on the field. The problem, and I think that's fine. I think that works against certain teams. Against some teams, though, they're just going to throw it all over you. And it's also not something they've repped. I don't know how much they've repped that. Like, you can't just throw stuff in the middle of the season either. I think you have to kind of trust what your schemes are at this point. But I think it's a way to get more linebackers on the field against a team like Iowa who are going to play. That makes some sense. But other teams are going to spread you out more, and you're just not going to be able to do it. Okay. Some more comments in here. Yeah, a bunch more thoughts in here. Brian Axis says, don't think Bama will kill us. Emotion and hope. Home field keeps it relatively close. Adam Otto says, Bama's going to kill us so bad they take their they take the bus right to the electric chair. Bo Dragon, Bama's going to run all over our defense. I do think Bama's going to run all over our defense. Chris McIntyre, you know, Wisconsin rarely gets run out of their own stadium. They'll keep it close. They'll jump around and lose by 10-14. That's kind of the scenario I see, Chris. I actually kind of agree with that one. I think it's similar to Ohio State last year, where Ohio State was clearly the better team, but that was a game at jump around. That was a game into the fourth quarter. I think you see something similar to that. Zach Bart says, if you have a feeling it'll be similar to the USF game, it'll feel closer than it should, and then we'll wake up and they'll be up by 21. Yep, I can see that scenario as well. All right, let's wrap it there. Do appreciate everybody, man. You guys are amazing. A bunch of content coming up this week. Bama content. Yeah, Match C. Priority number one, offseason, getting big bodies on defense line and a few on the offense line. Yeah, we got to get some more dudes there for sure. You guys are amazing. Gals are amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Locked On Badgers. When you're done here, go check out Locked On College Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network as well. Bunch of content coming up this week on Wisconsin, Bama week. Let's beat Bama. Let's go.